So I'm probably looking pretty terrible. Had a bit of a late night, too much to drink. But I've come out just before I go back to Kent, I've come out for a walk at Rainham Marshes, which is on the Thames. It's looking very beautiful today. I don't think there's been many people around, so it's fairly early. So this is an RSPB reserve that I know the landscape pretty well, because I used to cycle across here when I was quite young down Ferry Lane, which is a bit of bandit country, full of scrap metal yards and dodgy dealings. But I used to get on my bike and cycle all the way down here to the Thames, and in those days it was a military site, and it was full of like unexploded bombs and shells and things, so it's probably a funny place to be cycling. But anyway, this was my childhood playground, but now it's an RSPB reserve. Here is the visitor centre. I hated this building when it was built because they based it on packing crates stacked up on Ferry Lane, so the architect told me. So I really didn't like it, and it's slightly Fort Knox. You can see, look, the locals here are so scary that the RSPB had to build a drawbridge to keep us out. It's a bit scary. So I really hated it at the time, but actually, to be honest, now I don't think it's too bad. It does kind of blend with the colours of the marshes, and it does provide a lovely view. So anyway, we'll take a walk along the Thames, see what we see. Oh, this is amazing, really. That's the Dartford Crossing. That's the Dartford Crossing. And this is just upriver. And here you've got all the wildlife. Next time you cross the Dartford Crossing, think about how peaceful it is here. I'll show you. I think he's a bit ambitious if he's going for a duck. So now we're down on the reserve. This bird's called a pintail. It's a very smart duck. Oh, so it's got all the geese up. Oh, all the geese are coming in. It's just like heaving the birds out here. So Rainham Marshes, like I say, was just full of like unexploded ordnance. I think it cost a lot of money for it to be cleared, and then it was under threat obviously from development. We're right next to the A13, we're near the Dartford Crossing, and at one point they were going to put Euro Disney here. I remember the people from Disney turning up at my college and trying to persuade us all that it would be absolutely marvellous for us and we'd all get jobs in the film industry if we let Euro Disney come here. Oh, the birds just got up. See a peregrine around or something, just got them all up. Yeah, so like I said, at one point this was going to be Euro Disney, big development site, and then the RSPB took it on, and have done a remarkable job with it, because when I used to cycle over here when I was little, it was all quite dry. It was exciting, but there wasn't that much bird life here. I don't remember from a child cycling across here. So now it's obviously chock-a-block full of birds. And the RSPB had done that before. They took on another site in North Kent Cliff Pools, which was like full of fly tipping and burnt out cars and like a gypsy camp burning copper on the banks. And it cost them a fortune, I think, to clear all that up. And now that's absolutely full of bird life as well. So they are good for taking on these sites that frankly no one else wants to deal with. This is really nice how they've preserved some of the history. So this was the, must have had a train station come here, and this was the little halt that they used to come to, and that this is where the soldiers, they would have spent ages shooting at the rifle butts. Oh, they brought a Zeppelin down in 1916, and this is the RAF. The Zeppelin that came down. Yeah, I think I'm beginning to change my view about Rainham Marshes. I was always a bit sniffy about it because I didn't like the fact that the visitor centre was sort of almost surrounded by barbed wire, like the locals were so scary. The RSPB had to keep us out. I always felt a bit insulted by that, and I felt a bit insulted by the visitor centre, which, like I say, was based on these kind of shipping crates, and it was like these posh people would come to my area and all they could see was like derelict industry. They couldn't see what maybe the local people saw in it, which was like this wild landscape. But I think I was just a bit too quick. I actually resigned my membership and wrote to the chief executive at the time to say that he should be ashamed of himself for thinking of local people like that we needed to be locked out and barred from the visitor centre by all this fortifications. But I'm actually getting a different view walking around here, and I don't think I've ever walked around the whole thing before. You know, I think it's great that the RSPB have preserved this bit of land, and it's so full of wildlife, and they've made a, you know, they're preserving my local history that I wouldn't have seen or known a lot about until I've come here. So yeah, good on the raspberries. I judged you a bit too fast, I think. This turns out to be what the soldiers would have hidden behind. So the soldiers hid behind this thing. It's called a mantle, and it was covered in sand, and the poor guys who had to put up the targets for the other soldiers to shoot had to hide behind here so that stray bullets wouldn't hit them. This is a winding mechanism which I presume they would have used to kind of hoist up the targets randomly for the soldiers to shoot at. But now they say it's full of wildlife. The butterflies like it because it's probably a little bit of a hot spot, I'd imagine, in the summer. And they've got butterflies and mining bees living here behind the old target. And here, these two gentlemen are walking. Are they gentlemen? We're not sure. That's the old rifle range shooting target. Good thing about this place is it's actually, I have to say, quite good for wildlife amateurs. I'm not suggesting these people are wildlife amateurs. They might be Britain's #1 bird watchers for all I know. But there's certainly a lot of people who are just here for a stroll, or to get the kids interested in nature. So maybe it's and if some of these people are locals, then I am chuffed, because when I was young, so many years ago, and cycled across here, then there really wasn't very much for wildlife loving kids locally, not really. I joined the local RSPB group, but they were all quite snotty boys. They were all boys and quite snotty, and I didn't really feel like I fitted in. So I would have loved this to be here. I would love to have found this at the end of my cycle in those distant heady days of the 80s. And so I am rather pleased it's here now.